It's Tuesday, March 2nd, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. This year's CSEC and CAPE exams will take place in the traditional face-to-face format from June 14th to July 16th. Details of this year's plan were revealed during a CXC virtual press conference that included the chair of the CARICOM Council for Human and Social Development, Jeffrey Lloyd, CXC Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley, and the UWI's Pro-Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies, Professor Clive Landis. According to Dr. Wesley, the decisions were made with consensus from all relevant stakeholders, with the intention of giving students the best opportunity to succeed under the current circumstances.
We would have presented the details of the result of such consensus, which would have been reviewed by the respective ministries of education across the region, and the consensus approved and arrived at. So further to the information presented by the Honorable Minister, we would want to indicate further then that examinations will commence on the 14th of June and end on the 16th of July 2021, with CCSLC being administered between the 19th and the 22nd of July 2020. As it relates to the sharing of topics, while CXC will submit to all ministries of education the broad topics to be assessed on papers 5 weeks in advance of the administration of the examinations, which means on May 10th, that listing of topics will be available to the ministries of education.
Papers 1, 2, and 3 of the CAPE, CSEC, and the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence will all be conducted in their original format, and results will be made available sometime in September. Deadlines for the school-based assessment component have also been extended.
Given the issues being experienced by candidates for 2021, CXC reduced the assessment requirements for SBA to as much as 50% in some instances, details of which were issued in November 2020 to the local registrars for schools and some reposted on websites for candidates. There is also a 1-month extension for submission of all SBAs. CXC will maintain the 100% moderation of SBAs across all centers for all subjects.
The demand for Barbados' tourism product continues to soar despite the temporary collapse of the sector and its uncertain future. In fact, Minister Senator Lisa Cummins tells Barbados Today pent-up demand from United Kingdom holidaymakers is already resulting in increased bookings as the country's largest source market moves towards a gradual lifting of international travel restrictions. She said while officials here are eyeing the latter part of 2021 for a more full-scale restart of tourism, there will be no full steam ahead approach until the Ministry of Health and Wellness believes it is.
I can tell you, though, that in the interim, the initial predictions are that for the UK market, there is such latent pent-up demand that the bookings have soared 300. In some instances, some reports are getting back to us of 600% increases in bookings, even though in a time of uncertainty, people are not yet in a position to say what is going to happen. What we do know is that the Barbados brand remains strong, it remains powerful in the market, and we're expecting that as soon as the combination of public health measures in source markets and here in Barbados align more readily than they do now, and as soon as international travel is being facilitated more safely and people feel a higher level of confidence, because really the key thing at this point that we're dealing with is a combination of public health measures and traveler confidence.
2 members of government's COVID-19 monitoring unit have tested positive for the coronavirus. Head of the unit, Ronald Chapman, made the disclosure during a press conference yesterday evening. He said that the 2 officers had most likely been infected while off duty, but other officers have been quarantined as a result.
Yes, my unit has been impacted by COVID. We've had 2 of my officers who have tested positive for COVID, and because of that, there are 1 or 2 other officers who would have been in close proximity to them who are being tested and who would go into a quarantine. Now, those officers would not be considered contacts because they all wore masks consistently during their duties and interactions. But in an abundance of caution, in terms of giving them a peace of mind, we went ahead and have them tested. So it just lets you know that this, even the COVID-19 monitoring unit is vulnerable to this disease if we are as we interact with one another.
Meantime, at the same press conference, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George disclosed that no one who has taken the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in Barbados has had a serious reaction or been hospitalized in the first 2 weeks of government's vaccination program.
We haven't had any reports of anaphylaxis or severe reactions to the vaccine. The standard things that people complain about, pain at the site of the vaccine, a bit of post-vaccination fever, and just feeling unwell, which usually resolves within 24 hours. I believe the vaccines are safe.
And there have been no hospitalizations, correct?
There have been no hospitalizations. And please remember that we have a system for, it's called AEFI, adverse reactions following immunization, which we track in the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, Antigua and Barbuda yesterday received 40,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from the Indian government. More in this ABS News report.
Benevolence, kindness and empathy were the words Prime Minister the Honourable Gaston Brown used to describe the Indian government's gift of 175,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to the peoples of the region, which arrived on Monday. Some 40,000 doses were gifted to Antigua Barbuda, and Prime Minister Brown was not bashful in being grateful.
The fight against COVID requires global solidarity, recognizing that the virus could skip borders and enter the border of other countries. And I have to admit that this is easily one of the most notable acts of benevolence that we have seen within the last 100 years. India has been very responsive to the needs of Antigua and Barbuda. As indicated by the earlier speakers, India donated $1 million last year to assist us in our response to COVID.
And finally, health officials in the UK are trying to trace one of 6 people infected with a more contagious variant of the coronavirus, which was first detected in Brazil. More from Reuters TV.
UK health officials say 6 cases of a coronavirus variant first detected in Brazil have been found in Britain. 3 people tested positive for the variant in Scotland and another 3 in England, including 1 person who authorities have been unable to trace. The P1 variant shares some mutations with a variant first identified in South Africa, and there are fears it could be more contagious and resistant to vaccines. First detected in the jungle city of Manaus, It is said to have been responsible for a devastating second wave there, during which hospitals ran out of beds and oxygen. Susan Hopkins is from Public Health England.
This P1 variant is more transmissible than the original strains we saw from this virus. It is likely to have more antigenic change and therefore increase the risk of reinfections. And while we don't know the response to vaccine yet, we are concerned that we don't have spread of this that may impact on our vaccine program.
One of the English cases is yet to be identified because the individual who took the test did not complete their registration card. Health officials are now scrambling to track that person down.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.